Think about it. Every single day, companies are out there in the trenches, fiercely competing for our attention and, let's be real, our wallets. But how do the winners actually pull it off? Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're talking about pure survival, dominance, and success in the modern corporate landscape. We are going to explore how to build your very own strategic arsenal so you can do more than just get by. You can truly thrive in these chaotic, hyper-competitive markets.
Okay, so here's our roadmap. We've got a 5-part journey today. First, defining business-level strategy. Then, navigating changing business environments. After that, we'll unpack Michael Porter's Big 3, the cost leadership strategy, deployment of differentiation, and finally, the niche focus strategy.
Starting right off with Section 1, defining business-level strategy, because, before a business can go out and conquer a market, it has to get really clear on the weapons it actually has at its disposal.
I want to kick things off by throwing this question right back at you. How do businesses actually survive in changing environments? Seriously, think about the landscape we operate in today. Consumer preferences shift literally overnight. Tech becomes obsolete in a matter of months, and brand new competitors just spring up out of nowhere. The stakes of operating without a clear plan in a world this volatile? Absolute failure. You simply cannot wing it anymore.
So the answer to that survival question? It all comes down to this definition. A business-level strategy is a company's plan for competing in a specific market to achieve a sustainable competitive advantage by providing value to customers. Now, I really want you to lock in on 2 key phrases there: sustainable competitive advantage and value. We aren't just talking about a lucky edge for today. We're talking about a highly defensible edge for tomorrow, built entirely around what your customer actually cares about.
And to validate just how absolutely crucial this is, Harvard Business School calls strategy the foundational aspect of a firm. It's what enables a company to direct its resources and efforts toward success, allowing managers to establish real organizational goals. Think of it like your ultimate roadmap. It tells your money, your people, and your time exactly where they need to go.
Which brings us seamlessly to Section 2, navigating changing business environments. Once we actually know what a strategy is, how do we apply it to these dynamic, cutthroat markets?
Well, before we get into the nitty-gritty tactics, we have to lay down the absolute bedrock. All strategies, no matter what they are, ultimately strive to create value for the customer. But what does value even mean here? At its core, value is a gap. It's the critical difference between a customer's willingness to pay for a product or service and the actual price the business charges them. If you aren't creating that gap, that magical little space called value, no strategy in the world is going to save your business. And Michael Porter's legendary matrix of 3 generic strategies maps out exactly how businesses capture that value. It breaks down our distinct tactical options based on 2 things: the strategic advantage you're after, so either uniqueness or low cost, and your strategic target, meaning either an industry-wide market or a very specific segment. When you map those out, you get cost leadership, differentiation, and focus. Let's dig into these one by one.
Moving right along to Section 3, the cost leadership strategy. This is a mindset where operational efficiency isn't just some nice-to-have goal, it is absolute king. If you are gunning to be the cost leader, you are adopting a ruthless, no-frills, high-volume approach. To achieve a massive cost advantage and do it without sacrificing quality, you need all your cylinders firing. You need high-capacity utilization, meaning your machines are constantly running. You need massive economies of scale to relentlessly drive down unit costs. You need serious technological advancements and a highly skilled workforce that simply makes fewer mistakes. We're talking about obsessive cost control to drive massive market share.
So the real key here is understanding exactly who this strategy is built for. Cost leadership targets the highly price-sensitive consumer. The bargain hunter who is laser-focused on finding the absolute best deal. And that stands in direct, stark contrast to our next strategy, which goes after a totally different crowd. The price-insensitive buyer who is looking for something completely unique.
And that takes us right into Section 4, deployment of differentiation. We're shifting gears completely now, moving away from that strict cost-focused mindset to a philosophy that is all about uniqueness. Differentiation is what enables a company to make its offerings distinctly different from competitors, in a way that actually provides added value to the buyer. And this really happens in 2 complex layers. First, you have tangible differentiation. These are the things you can actually see and touch: product design, robust packaging, sheer physical quality and style. But then you have intangible differentiation. This is the abstract stuff. It's the image, the brand, the overarching corporate reputation.
Intangible differentiation relies incredibly heavily on the deep mysteries of consumer psychology and user experience.
Now, actually creating this uniqueness, it is not just about slapping a new coat of paint on the final product. It demands a massive, holistic effort across the entire firm, from innovative R&D capabilities and highly creative marketing to stellar human resources and cutting-edge tech. Every single department has to be totally aligned. Building an intangible brand image that justifies a premium price tag means the whole company, top to bottom, is completely committed to being different and better.
But of course, in strategy, there are always trade-offs, right? The advantages here are absolutely incredible. You build fierce brand loyalty, your customers become way less sensitive to price hikes, and you get to enjoy those high profit margins. It creates a massive barrier to entry. The risks, though? They are steep. It requires enormous financial investment, which obviously leads to higher costs. Your market size might be a lot more limited because, frankly, not everyone can afford a premium product. And the biggest risk of all? You are constantly vulnerable to imitation by competitors who are desperately trying to copy your unique features.
Let's move to our final section, the niche-focused strategy. This is the third core weapon in Porter's generic strategies, and it relies heavily on hyper-narrow targeting rather than broad, industry-wide appeal.
Instead of trying to serve everyone, a focused strategy zeroes in on a highly specific market segment and tailors its entire approach exclusively to them. It comes in two distinct flavors. You've got cost focus, where you are seeking a cost advantage strictly within a narrow target segment, or you have differentiation focus, where you offer your uniqueness exclusively to niche buyers in a specified segment. It's essentially taking those broad concepts we just talked about and hyper-optimizing them for a very specific, carefully chosen slice of the pie.
To ground this academic concept in reality, let's look at this brilliant example from our source material. In the global car market, Rolls-Royce and Ferrari are clearly niche players. I mean, they aren't trying to sell a reliable sedan to every family on Earth, right? They are executing a masterful differentiation-focused strategy. They target a tiny percentage of the global market with extremely premium products, and their buyers are more than willing to pay those incredibly premium prices for the privilege. Must be nice for sure. But listen, shrinking your target market is inherently risky. For a niche strategy to actually survive against the massive, broad competitors out there, you have to meet some really strict conditions. First, that specific market segment must still be large enough to actually be profitable. Second, it needs to have solid growth potential so your business doesn't just stagnate. And most importantly, the company focusing on this niche absolutely must have highly efficient resources to defend against bigger companies that might suddenly decide to swoop in and attack their specialized segment. It is all about carefully concentrating your resources.
So we've covered the core strategies in a modern business's arsenal: cost leadership, differentiation, and focus. And what's really fascinating here is that while Porter defined these clearly, today's most successful businesses often combine these approaches to create even stronger defenses in changing environments. So I want to leave you with this final, provocative thought. Knowing the strengths and weaknesses of each of these approaches, how would you position your own business in today's cutthroat market? Would you compete ruthlessly on price, build unparalleled uniqueness, or fiercely defend a tiny, highly profitable niche? Your choice of strategy is quite literally your first step to survival. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep thinking strategically.